Yo, my voice is deeper than usual because I just woke up. I watched Bong Joon Ho's latest film, Mickey 17, which was one of my most anticipated films in a while. I have always been a fan of animated films since I was a kid, but if I could credit one film to expanding my palette and getting me interested in film as a whole, it would be Bong Joon Ho's Parasite. Seeing this movie with a friend of mine on a small laptop in a tiny, shabby dorm room in New York was a canon event for me, okay? Also, I'm half Korean. Imagine how thrilled I was to see Parasite win Best Picture, the first non-English language film ever to win the top prize. And it came from Korea, the place where my aunts, uncles, and cousins live, and the place where some kid beat me over the head with a Hot Wheels. Good times. As you can tell, Parasite, a meticulously crafted dramatic satire, means a lot to me. But Bong Joon Ho's next film, Mickey 17, was obviously not going to be the same kind of film. It is a space comedy film starring Robert Pattison, who's doing a funny voice.
I wouldn't be surprised if you're thinking at this point, what have I done?
So I definitely wasn't expecting the same kind of excellence. But I was hopeful that Mickey 17 would embody a different kind of excellence. I was open to something completely new, but I did have high expectations. So, hey Mickey, did you do it? I think I have to figure this one out in real time. Mickey 17 is about a lot of things. At its core, it's about Mickey, played by Robert Pattison, who joins a space colonization program as an expendable. That means his job is to die for the sake of others and be cloned to do it all over again, whether it is for a science experiment, to help create a vaccine, or to generally act as a canary in a coal mine for explorers. The space colony is ruled by a tyrannical politician, played by Mark Ruffalo. Steven Yeun has his own thing too, and there are bugs. I'm not trying to spoil anything, but there are bugs. These are a lot of different plot threads in the movie, and I did kind of feel like the pacing wasn't the best. There are moments when it feels as though the movie takes random detours at inopportune moments to explore a side character, or a plot thread that just does not feel as relevant to the matter at hand. And even in a vacuum, it is fair to say you will probably not be equally invested in all of these plot threads as they are happening. For instance, I had no idea where the bug stuff was going, and when that started to take over the second half, I kind of checked out. Also, despite being a super important character, I'm pretty sure Naomi Aki's character doesn't really speak until around 40 minutes in. It feels a scene or two was cut for time or something. The pacing is my main problem with Mickey 17. However, like all other Bong Joon Ho films I've seen that weren't Parasite, I had to wait until the end to really connect with the film. But once it did, suddenly everything started to work, even the bug stuff. There are probably a lot of different ways to interpret Mickey 17, and I want to start with the parts that's been getting the most attention. I saw a lot of buzz before the movie about how Mickey 17 is a Trump satire, and it is. Mark Ruffalo's playing his own character, but he also kind of sounds like he's on SNL. If you kind of groaned just now, I get it. It truly feels as though there is no escape from this man, but I feel like a lot of people in the West aren't talking as much about the allusions to former President Yoon. Again, as I mentioned, I'm half Korean, so I was obviously glued to the news when Yoon attempted a hostile, undemocratic takeover a la martial law. Not to mention, Bong Joon Ho and President Yoon have some personal beef, to put it very lightly. This movie was obviously in production well before the guy did the that and the Still, you can see a lot of Yoon in this movie too. Or rather, Yoon's wife, as embodied by Toni Collette's character. It is kind of a common belief amongst Koreans that President Yoon was more or less a puppet, a kind of blunt instrument easily influenced by his wife, who was a famously zany and rather superstitious character. When President Yoon, for instance, famously moved out of the Blue House, the South Korean equivalent of the White House, it was largely believed that was due to the influence of a shaman, who was also believed to be connected with his wife. So with that context in mind, here too is some rather obvious satire. As a result of all that, I kinda saw Mickey 17, a collaboration between Korean and American filmmakers, as a collective venting session amongst both nationalities. We both have our issues with wannabe tyrants who are not as smart as they think they are, and I do think there is something novel about that, if not a little depressing. I also want to say Robert Pattison is climbing up there for me. He's getting close to Denzel Washington levels where I might start seeing a movie just for him. Because going from this
like diamonds.
To the lighthouse, to the Batman, to voicing the bird in Boy and the Heron. That one's my favorite. Save me, my dog! To this.
Saving me for the kiddos. What a great mom.
Shows how much range this man has, and I gotta say, he really kills it, especially once you get to the point, light spoilers, but it is in the trailer, when there are two Mickeys, each with his own different personality. Not only do their interactions feel completely seamless, but you can tell at even a far-off glance which Mickey is which despite looking identical. I think this also goes into the political aspects that I've been talking about. If we look at Mickey 17 as a portrait of fascism and political zealotry from the point of view of the everyman who were and are considered expendable, I think there is a ton of interesting commentary to the way the two Mickeys respond to this world. Mickey 17 is a doe-eyed and passive man with low self-esteem who more or less lets anything happen to him. Mickey 18 is a rage-filled man prone to fits of violence who frequently takes extreme actions against those who've wronged him, in particular Mark Ruffalo's tyrant, without caring for the greater consequences. They feel like two aspects of ourselves, the helpless but frustrated in the midst of political corruption, and also in the wake of much worse institutions. I want to praise both these actors, but then I remember they're both played by the same guy, so what the hell. Mickey 17 is not subtle at all, but this is where I want to clarify my stance on subtlety. I flack on a lot of stuff for not being subtle with its political and social messaging, but Mickey 17 is a perfect example, in my opinion, of obvious satire being done well, because it never feels lecturing or proctoring. It doesn't feel like you're listening to some 15-year-old debate kid who just got into Joe Rogan and is starting to get notions. I think the key difference is that Mickey 17 ultimately goes about it in a questions-first mindset. Rather than trying to tell you what to think, it's leaving you with more questions to think about for yourself. Again, the bugs though, what the f***? I totally get it if this kills the movie for you. It almost kinda did for me. However, there is a kind of twist about them late in the movie that did contextualize things for me. It did work in the end, is all I'm saying. A lot of this movie isn't about the meticulous details as much as it is about painting a portrait of a very specific vibe or issue. And that means you really have to go along with the ride and trust you'll understand things at the end. Just like you don't really know what to make of Memories of Murder until the tonal shift, or how Parasite feels like a much simpler movie until you get to the second act twist. Mickey 17 too feels like a whole picture by the end, even if it might have a bit more growing pains compared to Bong's Best. I would recommend Mickey 17 for those who like interesting science fiction concepts. Overall, this is the kind of movie to show some of your more casual fans. I think it has a pretty wide appeal. I would not, however, recommend Mickey 17 if you are expecting another Parasite, or if you expect a bit more restraint with your political satire.
Kissy face.
I'm not going to exactly call Mickey 17 a masterpiece. It feels much more accurate to call it a popcorn movie with some arthousey political undertones. Mickey 17 isn't as flashy with its filmmaking, and boy oh boy, again, it is not subtle, but there's nothing wrong with that. Hell, while I can see Mickey 17 turning a lot of people who loved Parasite off, I can also see it really engrossing other people who might not have also been as into Parasite. I don't personally get it, but I know there are people like that. Also, I'm just putting in my vote here. I do want Robert Pattison in the Best Actor conversation, but if Mickey 17 does not get a visual effects nom, I'm calling it hardcore bullshit. This is some of the most seamless effects I've seen in a while. I don't care that it's not that flashy. Okay, bye. If you like this video, please give it a little like and a comment and a ring-ding-bing of the little bell icon down at the bottom, please. Thank you very much.
I try to stay calm. It's hard when I'm doing your